The goal of both the Math and Reading Buddy program is to address the red flag issue of the achievement gap. Our program is meant for kiddos who are behind grade level in reading or math. We know that statistically, students that are behind in reading at third grade level or are less likely to graduate high school, which makes them more likely to live in poverty. We know that students who struggle with number sense will continue to struggle throughout their academic career in math. Our volunteers being there at the early level will help them ward off some of those issues before they become larger issues in their lives.
The students that are struggling the most academically tend to come from disadvantaged homes. And for Springfield specifically, if you are a member of a historically marginalized group, then you have a greater chance of being in a disadvantaged home. Whereas when you have an advantaged home, there are parents who are available to be home, help them with a Zoom, connect them to what they needed, get them engaged with individualized tutoring. Our kids don't have that opportunity, which is why we run our program during the school day. That way no one has any problem with transportation, with timing, trying to get their kids to an additional place. There is no cost to the family. So it eliminates all of the barriers that our disadvantaged kids would have.
Our reading buddies meet with their student for a half hour every week. We want them to go in, read a story with them, connect with them, find out where their interests are, where their passions are, get to build a relationship with them.
So 3 years I had the opportunity to be a reading buddy and had some of the greatest little kids ever. They're all been in first grade. A little boy was the first one, and I will just tell you with no second thoughts, it was love at first sight when the door opened and he was introduced to me, and I don't know which of us was smiling the biggest. And then I had a little girl in the first grade, and we struggled all year with the same 4 letters. And the truth was her vocabulary was not going to go much beyond that. And her favorite books were the Gerald and Piggy books. And on most of those pages, there's maybe 2 or 3 words, and they're great big words, and she would emulate those words behind me. And near the end of the school year, within the last few weeks, we were in the hallway working, and she was engaged with those words. And so I turned and said to her, what would you think if your teacher would let you come and read this book to the class? Thinking she was probably going to say no, right, I can't read, or I can't get in front of my peers. And with the giant of smiles, the answer was yes, no matter what the word was. So I scurried across the hall and asked if we could, and she said, well, okay. And so into the classroom we went, and they gather on the floor, and we read this book to her class in her very own way of reading those. Now, I'm not going to story to you that the first couple of pages, a couple of the kids snickered. And she turned to me, and in her own way, she said, they're laughing at me. And I said, no, they're laughing at Gerald and Piggy. It's okay. And for probably 2 minutes, she had an opportunity in her life that she'd never had before. And I'm going to raise my hand and say, that's what a reading buddy can do.
Yeah, I love the Math and Reading Buddy program because it really amplifies the likelihood that a child's going to have a meaningful relationship with an adult that cares for them. I can't tell you how many families that have broken the cycle of poverty that I've talked to over the year that said, you know, that English teacher, that math teacher was a real fundamental change in my life. Well, if you send 5 or more Math and Reading buddies to a classroom, you amplify the chance that those kids are going to have a meaningful experience.
Yeah, so just to add to that too, I would say for us, another great outcome is engaging a more diverse volunteer group. Currently, we have kind of been a tree in a flower pot in a sense. To me, I see a lot of opportunities for younger volunteers to come in. I think about, people that are going into college, learning how to become teachers, for example, for elementary or preschool students, having real life experience one-on-one with students, it just better prepares them for the workforce as well.
So there's been a lot of research done by Raj Chetty and Robert Putnam about just the increase in socioeconomic segregation in our community. So if you look at the census tracts southeast of town, the kids that grew up there are now making an average income of $50,000 a year compared to $22,000 to $26,000 if you grew up in the west or northwest side of town. So what we hope to do with the volunteers is bring the affluent people and put them in contact with the low-income kids every day so that they kind of build empathy, they have a greater understanding of the problem. A wise individual, Greg Burris, once said that Springfield is the right-sized town. You know, we can actually solve all those problems. As Richard Allis and others kind of do the Springfield Forward, I think we can become a more socioeconomically integrated community so that every child thrives.
Kids are the future, and particularly when we're talking about like generational cycles of poverty, that's where it's going to break. I kind of like to say we try to give people all the tools they need to forge a pathway out of poverty. And education is obviously one of the most important things that we can do for kids.
Tina has done an amazing job working with Springfield Public Schools, and she has great relationship there. We're able to look at each individual student and how they're increasing. We also have surveys that we are able to evaluate what was their attitude before and what is their attitude after. So the nice thing about the ROI, there is a significant portion that is absolutely measurable and provable.
If you only had $1, if you only had an hour, there is no better investment than a child being able to read, and it impacts our entire community because that child is going to grow up and they're going to work at the grocery store, they're going to work at some place you're going to interact with them, they're going to impact your world beyond anything you can ever imagine. It doesn't matter what corridor of any city they live in, you're all part of a community, so invest those dollars in the people and the resources that can help those children grow to become the adult that you want to interact with every day.
An interventionist, a teacher, can only reach so many students. The need is great. Our numbers show that, and the need is even greater post-pandemic. So what our buddies can do is come alongside the teachers and come alongside these schools and provide what I think is an untapped resource, which is people in the community who want to help. So we're going to connect the people in the community who want to help to the schools and students who need help. Our program will train them, our program will provide them supplies at no cost to the student and no cost to the school.
What better place to invest than in the future of our children and our education and Springfield? So you could invest in something that's going to have a short-term effect in someone's life, and that's okay. But when you invest in education, you're investing in breaking the cycle of poverty, you're investing in an individual's opportunity to be successful and pour back into the community.